Zijn we er? Nee, nog? Ja, oké. Goedenavond en welkom bij de publieke ontmoeting met Vincenzo Natali en Andrew Miller. Ah, we hebben geluid. Regisseur en hoofdacteur van de film Nothing die we daarnet zagen. Het zijn ons natuurlijk geen twee onbekenden. Ze waren al vorig jaar op het festival met films als Cube en Cypher, die allebei al een prijs wegkaapten. En dit jaar zijn ze dus met Nothing. Ze leerden elkaar kennen op jonge leeftijd en bleven dan samenwerken. De ene als acteur, de andere als regisseur, maar beide schreven ze aan het scenario van hun films.
Voilà, bienvenue à la rencontre publique avec Vincenzo Natali et Andrew Miller pour le film Nothing. Alors, un petit résumé de la carrière de Vincenzo Natali. Il a commencé en faisant des storyboards, en illustrant des storyboards pour les studios Nelvana à Toronto. Ensuite, il a réalisé quelques courts-métrages. Ensuite, son premier film, Cube, a été réalisé en 1996 et il a connu le succès que tout le monde connaît. Il a été présenté dans un grand nombre de festivals autour du monde. Il a gagné plus d'une douzaine de prix, dont ici en 1999. Son film suivant a été Cypher, qui a également gagné l'année passée. Et maintenant, il vient pour nous présenter Nothing.
Et voilà, quant à Andrew Miller qui venait de s'enfuir et qui vient de revenir, il a donc commencé sa carrière d'acteur à 16 ans. Il est né à Toronto. Après cette carrière, ce début de carrière, il a décidé de suivre des études à Montréal. Et là, les études ont été rapidement avortées en faveur d'un premier rôle dans un film. Depuis lors, il joue et il écrit également des scénarios. Il a écrit 3 scénarios jusqu'ici en collaboration avec Andrew Lowry et notamment le scénario de Nothing qu'on vient de voir.
Maybe a first question, or maybe it's more a statement than a question. Is it fair to call Nothing Beavis and Butthead meets Waiting for Godot?
Yes, with the emphasis on Beavis and Butthead. We always said, you know, it's like Beckett, but not intelligent.
Where does your fixation with Nothing come from? Because the Cube was in Nothing. Now we have literally nothing.
Yeah, well, you know, first and foremost, it's low-budget filmmaking, and then secondly, you know, it was sort of interesting doing Nothing in relation to Cube as kind of a sister film to Cube, because Cube is all about containment, whereas Nothing is all about infinite openness, which is a different kind of claustrophobia. But it really started because I had an idea many years ago for a film that would star David and Andrew, who are very close friends of mine and really the only actors I knew who would work for free. And I eventually managed to drag them to this very remote location, and we were literally in a trailer in the middle of nothing, and we wrote a 6-page treatment. And then eventually Andrew and his writing partner, Andrew Lowry, decided to turn it into a script, and we made the film. Do you want to add?
And technically, because it's about nothing, so it's like white all the time, but technically it must have been quite difficult because there's a lot of computer graphics all the time. How was it during the actual shooting of the movie?
When we set out to do it, we thought that it would be really cheap like Cube because we could just shoot it inside a house and then that'd be it. And then we started shooting, and the effects people said that every time we were in the house and we saw a window, it would cost thousands of dollars. So by the end of it, I think we had 300 effect shots, which is about as much as Spider-Man. They're not as complicated, obviously, but they had to go in 300 times to do stuff, so it became progressively more and more expensive. And then, on top of that, you'd think that making something white would be really easy. As it turns out, you have to light it so intensely that then we had a lighting package that was the size of X-Men in Toronto. And because of that, it was 100 degrees all the time, and it was oppressivly hot to shoot in. And then on top of that, yeah, then we were wearing pajamas and tinfoil that, you know. At one point when we were wearing the tinfoil suits, we had these things rigged to our bodies that had water running through, like a mechanical vest with water going through it, and these hoses that would be plugged in, and then you'd catch, you know, pneumonia because your chest was freezing cold and the rest of you was.
And for how long the shooting lasted?
The shooting was about 7 weeks or 29 days, and it was broken up so that we do about a week everywhere, a week inside, a week outside, a week in wires, a week. So each week was kind of a new hellish adventure.
So, and did you work together with the other Andrew a lot on the visuals?
The visual side was, frankly, mostly left to me, but I have a number of collaborators that I work with, Jasna Stefanovic, who's a production designer, and Derek Rogers, who's a cinematographer on all my previous films. So actually, the visual side was a collaboration with them, and then from an acting and writing perspective, it was David and the Drews. Yeah. So it was interesting because actually I had 1 day off, 1 day of vacation between finishing the mix for Cypher and starting pre-production for Nothing. And so it was exactly the same crew that we had on Cypher that shot Nothing. And it was really wonderful because everybody had a rapport at that point and, you know, went incredibly smoothly, and it was just agonizing for the actors, that's all, but we didn't really care about that, so it was okay.
You like to work with a small crew of actors. It's a bit like a family.
Yeah, and because David and Andrew are very, very close friends of mine, they would put more into the film than any other actor in the world. Like they were on set all the time. I mean, they worked so incredibly hard, but it was because there was a level of trust, and because I guess they've just become, you know, used to being abused by me on a regular basis.
And no one else will hire us.
So, but actually, you wrote two other scenarios before this one. I mean, two other scenarios that were actually filmed in Hollywood. So this one was quite different from the two others. I mean, quite anti-Hollywood in a way, like the ending. I'm not sure that this would be like a real big Hollywood movie.
No, we did a movie with Miramax that just ended up being bad. And then we did another movie that was even worse. So this was a great opportunity for us to be able to. The problem when you do those kinds of movies, you have to do everything a certain way, and it's very confining. And this was the opposite, where we had, you know, like Nothing, we had limitless possibilities. So it was exciting. We wrote Nothing while we had a contract with Miramax, and we were in between movies, and we did this in between, and it's like a vacation because you could just have as much fun as you wanted without having to worry about anyone telling you you're an idiot. Until the movie was made, and then of course people.
After you finished Cypher and Cube, both movies which share another theme, I think it's paranoia, especially for Cypher. Weren't you asked to do?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? Was that me talking? I don't know. Weren't you asked by Hollywood or someone to maybe do a remake of the Manchurian Candidate? Because that was a movie that reminded me a lot of Cypher.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Demme got to that first, but no, actually, Cypher was more influenced by another John Frankenheimer film called Seconds, which is a lesser-known one, but I think a superior film. But yeah, no, believe me, Cypher owes many, many, many debts. And actually, that was one of the things that was refreshing about working on Nothing, is that it is a completely different kind of film. I mean, everybody involved with Cypher had a headache just keeping up with all of the various convolutions of the story. On Nothing, it was all about, you know, the gag or the moment, the acting, the performances, and so it was actually really freeing to be able to work in that kind of different milieu.
Er zijn misschien al vragen in het publiek, want er is toch wel serieus wat voor. De question aan het publiek? Quelqu'un? No? Okay, then. Donc, on continue.
You seem, when you work with your partner to rewrite scenarios, you call yourself the Drews, the two Andrews actually. So how is it, do you consider yourself more like a script writer or more of an actor, or do you like the two activities, or at one point would you like to stop one of the two activities, or I don't know?
I'll do anything for money that anyone wants to let me do. So, but I hadn't, the last thing I'd acted in was Cube, basically. So there was 4 or 5 years in between, and a lot of that was, you know, because I was busy enough with writing, I didn't have to worry about acting, but nobody was really busting down my door to try to get me to do anything. So it just sort of worked out, you know. And it's the most fun kind of acting to do this way, because it's with you know, my friends, and we all, you get to have a level of trust in this sort of working environment that is just so rare in the film business. And so I would always want to act in that kind of thing. But other than that, I don't, you know, again, no one's really asking me a lot, so it's an easy decision to make.
Mr. Natali, you were also involved with Ginger Snaps.
Right.
How did you get involved in that project?
Well, Ginger Snaps was directed by a very, very good friend of mine, John Fawcett, and actually was produced by the producer of Nothing, Steve Hoban. And if you pay very, very close attention to the film, you'll actually hear a soundbite from Ginger Snaps and even see some footage from the movie in our film because Steve owned the rights. And it was like the only footage we could get cheaply. But yeah, John is a director I really, really like. He's shooting a new film on the Isle of Man right now, a horror film. So yeah, there's a real community of people in Toronto that know each other, and yeah, it's a great place to work.
Yes, Canada is definitely on the map. It started with Cronenberg, but lately there are a lot of directors who are doing horror and genre movies over there. So is there a lot of interest from film funding over there to do genre?
There is more now because the model up until now hasn't succeeded, and I think the Canadian government is looking to invest in films that'll return their investment, which I'm not sure why they invested in our movie, but yeah, no, they're definitely looking to make more genre-type fare.
You told us finally it's a small budget film, but since Cube, is it more easy for you to make movies?
Yeah, no, it's easier. The first one is always the hardest for anyone who's ever tried to make a movie. The first one is just really difficult. But for me, getting my second film made was also difficult in a different sort of way because I had these enormous ambitions for what my second film should be, and I couldn't make it happen. So, yeah, I mean, they're all hard. They're all hard in different ways. This was definitely Nothing was definitely the most enjoyable shoot I've ever had because I was working with the same team. And it's actually shocking to me that anyone invested in the film because it's such an odd concept. And I'm sure that no one would have had I not made Cube. So it definitely helped.
Talking about Cube, I think you sold the rights for the other movies, so
right.
that there was already this sequel, and now I've heard there's a prequel in preparation. Right. What do you think about this one? Have you been involved in any way with it?
No, not at all. No, I made a point of not getting involved. Those could be great movies. It's a long, boring, complicated story, but Cube was a film that was made in a film school in Canada, and they own the sequel rights to the movie, and it's a non-profit organization, and they sold them for a substantial amount of money. So I said, do it, with my blessing, because they're the people who gave me my break. But I didn't really want to get involved.
But you didn't want to do more about Cube. You didn't want to do the sequel or anything like that.
Once you've made one film in a Cube, you believe me, you don't want to go back. But it's interesting to note that in the prequel to Cube, Andrew was offered the lead role. Do you want to talk about that, Andrew?
And did you accept it?
No, because it's a really great idea for the prequel that involves the character that I played in Cube before I get into the Cube. But it was a really fun and creative idea. But once you shoot in the Cube once, you just don't want to go back.
Maybe you just don't want to be a star.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that I noticed about Nothing, I thought when I read the premise of Nothing, I said, this is going to be a movie without a samurai sword. But then again, because with that Last Samurai we had Kill Bill, was this a deliberate nudge toward those movies? Because I also thought a little bit of Hollow Man maybe in there with the... So are the deliberate nudges to other movies, or were they just in the script?
Well, we actually shot Nothing before we even knew what, the Kill Bill existed, and but I have a real love for Japanese cinema and samurai. I mean, actually, hold on, that was your idea. You should be answering this question.
Yeah.
It's not my fault. There's a samurai sword in the movie, but no. Actually, one of the things that was liberating about Nothing was that it at least not consciously, it didn't make any references to other movies. What was so fun about that idea for us, I think, was just the fact that there weren't a lot of touchstones, and there weren't a lot of reference points. Whereas Cypher, for me, was kind of an homage to, the whole film is about other movies to some extent, but Nothing, to my knowledge, isn't, really referencing anything. Nothing.
maybe a little bit with Nail and I, but surreal.
Yeah, you know what? Yes, you hit it. Yeah, with Neil and Yellow Submarine were the two. Maybe those, and a few Jacques Tati films. And, yeah.
Est-ce qu'il y a des questions dans le public, peut-être?
Question?
Ah,
Le micro? Ah, le micro est là-bas.
From your point of view, do you think Nothing is more about a movie about friendship or a movie about nothing?
Well, you know, actually, Nothing is, I think, about a lot of things. I mean, you know, ironically, and it is very, very much about friendship, absolutely. I think you're being very observant. That was, we realized early on that this film had to be about more than Nothing, that it had to have a human heart. And so, absolutely. And it was a film made by friends, so I think it's sort of a, you know, consequence of our collaboration. It ended up being about friendship.
Une autre?
Was er nog een vraag? Binnen.
First, tell you that it was an incredible movie, as all of your movies. We are really big fans, and one of the things I love particularly in your movies is the atmosphere. I've never seen, I mean, I have no words to express it, but it's the look and feel of the movie. You know, it's different to anything I've seen, and you know, it's when in each movie you brought that atmosphere in a different way, which is amazing, and so kudos for that. And my question is, like, another person that I really admire is Michael Andrews, and when I saw you were working together in Cypher, I was like, wow, because, well, obviously one of my favorite movies is Donnie Darko, and I think that the key in Donnie Darko is Michael Andrews' music. I mean, I don't know how many times I've listened to it.
I'm gonna tell him you said that. He'll love that.
I would love, I mean, I've been looking for his email, you know, to do, but of course, I mean, you are bigger, and I mean, yours, like, it's more complicated to express that, so I'm really, when we saw that you were working with him, we was like, wow, I mean, Vincenzo and Michael Andrews, that was a killer combination, and to be honest with you, I was looking for the score of Cypher, I mean, all over the place, and it was very, very hard. And basically, I think the atmosphere is just, it couldn't be better.
Oh, well, you're so kind, and I think you're being very observant, because a lot of that is owed to Michael Andrews' collaboration on the film. And it's interesting to note that originally I wasn't going to use Michael, and the reason was I just didn't think I could afford him, because we had such a small budget on this movie. I used a Canadian composer, and unfortunately, it wasn't working out. So I called Michael in desperation, like a panicked call. I said, please, 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 I'm almost on my knees, like, can you do this? And he agreed to for no money. In fact, I think it cost him money to compose that score and record it. And he did it in 3 weeks. It was like the most, I literally moved into his studio, and we just, you know, spent 3 weeks hammering it out. A lot of it was performed live.
What is funny is that the whole concept now is a comical movie in a way. So it was also funny to see how, because Michael always like kind of spooky sounds, and you know, and more like, and this time it's like you. I mean, it completely surprised me. The whole, you really twist the whole thing around, and so it's brilliant. I mean, how did you meet him? Do you? Because
of the Donnie Darko score. I loved it so much, and okay. I met him when I was interviewing composers for Cypher, and that was the reason. It was Donnie Darko. I just thought it was so beautiful, and he's a really sweet guy, and he's an incredibly funny person. Like, in a way, in terms of his character, this score is much truer to him, I would say, than, you know, the other scores that I've heard him. But Andrew actually did a short documentary about Michael. Maybe you want to talk about that.
Well, we shot with it, making a long story a little bit shorter, but he put this band together, and they were in a room 10 hours a day for a week, and they recorded the entire soundtrack. And it was incredible to watch, because they just sat down and he'd go, okay, yeah, you do that and you do that, and the guitar and the bass, and then they'd just record, and they'd be like, okay, let's do the next one, and like that, so fast. So we went in for a couple days to record, to film them doing one of the cues. Amazingly, that was the only cue that was cut out of the movie, and then ultimately put back in a different place. But in the scene where Dave and Andrew or me, whatever, bounce up and down and get in that fight, Michael did this really great whole huge long thing, and then ultimately we took it out. But we were just hoping that Michael would come up with a hit song like Mad World for our movie, like he did in Donnie Darko, but not to be.
Maybe both of you can tell us something about your future projects. What's in the making?
Not much. No, I'm working. My writing partner and I have we sold a movie to Disney, and we're trying to get that made. And then we've written a couple other things that we're trying to get going in different forms.
We have to say also that you have a very interesting website. We're talking about that. So you've got a website called The Drews, and on this website you have quite a lot of little movies, one which is called To Learn How to Do a High Five. So maybe you should show us a little bit.
It's a really silly website, but we offer a number of tutorials. Yeah, Dave Hewlett, who plays Dave in the movie, was also a web designer, so he did the website for us, but we try to impart some of our knowledge to the kids out there. So we teach people how to tie their shoes and build a snowman and give a high five, which is the key to which is keeping your elbow at a 90-degree angle. That's really the thing one of the things you learn on the website.
And a terrifying horror film.
We have a horror film called Ball, which is about a killer exercise ball that rolls and kills people. You can check it out at thedrewswebsite.com.
I'm just working on a whole bunch of things right now. Nothing worth mentioning, to be honest.
There's something called Necropolis, which seems to be in progress, or no?
Yeah, no, I'm actually. That's at a very early
you
stage.
don't want to talk about it.
No. I mean, I'd love to talk about it. There's nothing to talk about at the moment, but that's something that a filmmaker named Paul Anderson approached me about. So I'm actually meeting with him in a couple days, and then I think I'll learn a little bit more about it.
So he's the director of Mortal Kombat, and
That's right. And he's just finishing Alien vs. Predator. Yeah.
And then maybe the question I pose to every guest of the festival is the dream project question. You have unlimited budget, unlimited means. You can hire anybody you want. You can play in anybody's movie you want. What would be your dream project? Could be a remake, sequel, doesn't matter.
Remake of nothing, Andrew? Do you want to remake it?
Yeah, a remake of nothing. With a big budget.
Starring a solo version. Well, actually, the problem is I have too many. I've got like a shelf of things that, yes, if you gave me infinite amount of money, I have no problem spending it. Absolutely, but well, if you ask any filmmaker that, you'll probably get that response. But a specific film, I don't know. I hate remakes. I detest remakes. They make me sick. I'd never want to remake anything. So I'd spend a lot of money blocking other films from being remade. How about that?
Thank you very much for that.
Merci
anyway.
beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Vincenzo Natali and Andrew Miller, for coming to Brussels with a beautiful movie. Thank you.
Vincenzo Natali et Andrew Miller maintenant vont signer des dédicaces pour ceux que ça intéresse.